This changes everything we thought about the Toronto Maple Leafs plans as Brad Treliving continues to look for top six help. We get major reports revolving around Nazem Kadri and the likelihood of him joining the Toronto Maple Leafs heading into next season. We have so many reports to break down and so much you don't want to miss on this episode. Before we get into that, if you're part of the 17,750 watching this, we want to give you a huge shout out. We're trying to reach our goal of 18,000 subscribers. So if you're enjoying the daily content on the Toronto Maple Leafs, the Montreal Canadiens, New York Rangers, or the Vancouver Canucks, make sure to go down, hit that free subscribe button, and we'll be giving you updates from all around the league. But with that, Darius, let's just hop straight into it today, where we do know the Toronto Maple Leafs have been looking for top six help. They lost Mitch Marner to Vegas in what felt like a bit of a sign and trade, getting back a elite third line center, but the top six is kind of missing that oomph to it at this point. And we know, we've seen the reports flying around this Leafs team from Nick Kypreos on Sportsnet. Kadri appears willing to lift his no-move clause for the Montreal Canadiens and the Toronto Maple Leafs. Now, there's two more reports that we're going to break down, but just starting off, what is your thoughts on Nazem Kadri and the potential return back to Toronto?
It's interesting. On the Calgary Flames side of things and the Nazem Kadri side of things, I don't think that he's necessarily requesting a trade. Like, he doesn't want out of Calgary. He's signed there. Brad Treliving, ironically enough, signed him to that contract when he was the GM of the Calgary Flames. But it doesn't sound like he necessarily wants out or is unhappy with his role there or anything like that. But it does sound like if, a team like the Leafs were to kick tires on him and then, the Flames were to go to him and say, would you be open to going to Toronto or Montreal, that he would be open to waiving his no movement clause to go to those teams. So I think it's pretty interesting. I think the Leafs, it's pretty obvious at this point, they need top six help, right? They need one more player in that top six. And you're taking a real risk there, I'll call it, with Michelli. It could work out, and I think that it will, and it will work out very well for them. But on the other side of things, it could not work out. So you can't take, a flyer on another player and just hope that that works out in your top six. They need another top six option. Kadri is an interesting one, though. I don't know if it makes too much sense for this team with the current makeup of it. One of these guys in Kadri or Tavares would have to play the wing in that case, if he is to play in the top six, which I would imagine he would. Your bottom six is slowly coming together now. Brad Treliving is continuing to make some moves, but doesn't make too much sense to me in terms of, you already have a center there in Tavares. Are you moving Tavares to the wing? Does Kadri go to the wing? Doesn't make too much sense in that way. So still, it's going to be interesting. I'm sure they're going to kick tires. The other interesting thing into all of this is Brad Treliving in the Calgary Flames, not the greatest history. It doesn't seem like the Calgary Flames want to trade with Brad Treliving in the Toronto Maple Leafs. So we'll see if this, materializes, but there are some other interesting reports that have given us some insight into if this will actually happen or not.
And I mean, the biggest thing is Kadri is a hot commodity. Players need, or teams need, a second line center. We see from Nick Kypreos going in after having that quote saying Treliving has tried numerous times to trade with his old club in the past to be shut down. Tanev, Zadorov, Anderson. We know that it may be a stretch to land the Leafs, and we also get from Frank Seravallis, everyone's favorite, of course, going in to kind of douse the flame, no pun intended, on the potential return of Kadri to Toronto or just leaving in general. Listen, Nazem Kadri was very good when he was on the Leafs, but he hit the next level when we seen him go. I mean, last year on a Calgary Flames team that did fight till the very end to try to make it into the playoffs, putting up 67 points in 82 games, including 35 goals. Kadri has been very productive in his career with the Toronto Maple Leafs, the Colorado Avalanche, which was a really bad trade when they first did it, getting a few players back, but with Calgary, he continues to play well. Now, the biggest thing with Kadri, 34 years old, you are taking on a bit of a veteran at this point, but still a very productive one, hoisting a cup with Colorado and paving the way with them being an elite second-line center that they themselves have been trying to find since letting them go to Calgary, but I think it falls back, and it's like you said. First off, the cost is going to be a lot, and where does he fit? I do like the idea of, as Tavares gets older, you can move him into a winger role. We've seen it with Stamkos. Isn't really working with Nashville, let's be honest, and that's not on him. But older players tend to move to the wing at the center possession. You can still have him take important draws, but he would play more of a winger role, so he doesn't have to cover as much ice. But the big thing is, listen, we're going to get into what it would cost. I know it doesn't seem likely, but if they do offer everything they have, there is a chance, and it does seem like Calgary would entertain something. But Is this the type of player that you think could put the Leafs over the edge going into the playoffs?
Yeah, I think you can win with this player, and that was evident in Colorado, like you brought up. I want to take everyone back to 2019 when he was traded to the Colorado Avalanche. Hindsight is 2020. At the time, a lot of people were figuring maybe you do trade Nazem Kadri because he got suspended in back-to-back playoff runs for the remainder of those playoff series. So that was a talking point at the time, right? Let's not shy away from that. Let's not pretend like that didn't happen. But the fact of the matter is he matured when he went to Colorado and he ended up winning a Stanley Cup, and he's matured since then. He's a better player, and I think that you can win with this player. So when you talk about changing the DNA, it's not just about the player personnel and the players on the ice. It is a little bit, but it's more of the mentality. You need to bring in more guys who've won the Stanley Cup, know what it takes to win and want to win, especially on a team like the Toronto Maple Leafs. So it would fit in that way. But you know what? With John Tavares there, the fact that you bring up some good points. He's getting older. I think they're roughly the same age or a year apart. Might actually be the same age, but they're both getting older. Tavares just re-upped. Obviously, he's been fantastic. Kadri, of course, has term left on his contract. I just don't know if you want to put one of these guys on the wing. So I don't know if it makes much sense from that point of view, and the fact that you still have to fix that problem, which is lurking in the weeds right now, which is who's going to be your second line center after Tavares, which you're probably going to have to figure out in the next 2 years. So I don't like it for those reasons, but in terms of the dog that's in the player, like Nazem Kadri, the fact that he knows how to win, he knows what it takes to win at this point in his career, and he's cleaned up his game. I think that could make sense.
And I think the big thing is this Leafs team is going to do whatever it takes to win a Stanley Cup. They've been trying, but Brad Treliving has been cooking with how he's building this new culture, letting Mitch Marner go to a new team after a disappointing playoffs yet again. The Ryan Reeves fiasco, where we've seen him shipped off to the San Jose Sharks. But the big thing comes down to, and I want your opinion on this as well. I'm not going to sit here and say, hey, in 3 years, Austin Matthews is going to leave this team, because there's a strong chance that he's going to be a Leaf for the rest of his career and go down as the greatest of all time. But when you look at this, and we'll get into very soon what the Leafs have to offer for top six talent, do you think there's secretly a bit of conversation going around with Pelly, Brad Treliving, that there is a tiny bit of a window? If you get 3 years from now, you don't have a cup, you still haven't made it to the Eastern Conference Finals or the Stanley Cup Finals. If he ends up walking, you're kind of left in the situation of where do we go? So do you think there is some talks within this organization that we need to win within this 3 years?
Absolutely. I think that if you look at guys like not just Austin Matthews, but the length of his contract left, if you look at other guys on the team like Chris Tanev, OEL, like a lot of these guys are not getting any younger, right? And they're in that same window with their contracts too. So I think there is added pressure. I think you do have to try and win in the next 3 years. Whether you trade the farm for that, that's still up in the air. I don't think that you should do that. We'll get into some prospects in a second. But if you somehow take a step back, let's say this year or the next 2 years without Mitch Marner, I don't think that's going to be the case. I will be honest, especially in terms of playoff success. But if you do end up taking a step back, then I think Matthews is going to look at that and be like, am I going to win here? Right? I'll set the record. He's going to set the record probably this year for the most goals scored in franchise history. He's going to beat Sundin. It's coming up here shortly. So he's going to do that. And then maybe he looks at it like, I want to win a Stanley Cup, and maybe it's not here in this window, and I'm not getting any younger either once he heads into his 30s. So I think there is added additional pressure to get something done in the next couple of years.
And I think the big thing is, first off, thank God Arizona doesn't have a team, because we do have 2 Arizona-born players on that top line. But with this team, they do need to grab a forward. Now, with draft capital, they're lacking a few first-round picks. They sent off the 4th to get Dakota Joshua, but right now, looking at this, you do have some later picks. You have multiple 6th-round picks. You do have 2 firsts, but they are 2 and 3 or 3 and 4 years out from now. With this Leafs team, they do need to move assets to get in a bigger asset. And that kind of boils down to, would you move on from Easton Cowan, which is their top prospect at forward? You have a young stud in Ben Danford. Darius, would you be comfortable to move on from 2 or one of these key players plus a future first-round pick if you can get that top 6 forward?
I wouldn't move off of either of these guys. We talk about untouchables around the league a lot. I wouldn't necessarily label them as untouchable. I think there is the right trade package that could warrant trading one or even both of these guys, of course, out there. Anything can happen, but you're going to need to get a bona fide superstar in return, like a star player in this league that would make a definite impact right away if you're trading both of these guys. You've put way too much time, energy, and resources into Ben Danford and Easton Cowan alike. And I think that Easton Cowan, everything that I've seen from him. He should be an effective NHLer when he finally gets there. They're taking his time with his development. That's fine, right? Like that's all fine. But you know, you scout it from scouting him, right? The fact that he was supposed to be a second or third round pick and he turned into a first round pick and then he won the MVP, all of these things. He went back to the OHL, won the Memorial Cup after a disappointing season where he didn't. They lost in the final minute of the Memorial Cup. So, you know, he's done all of those things. I think he's going to be a good NHLer. Again, for the right package, sure, he's available, but don't trade him just for the sake of trading him or because he's one of your, you know, highly sought after assets and you can get something that could shore up a lineup or something like that. It's got to be a guy who's going to be very impactful. And in terms of Ben Danford, I look at him as like the Chris Tanev replacement. He's on that kind of timeline where Chris Tanev will probably go to Robot Island, or we'll see how that works out. But Ben Danford, again, too much energy, time, resources into this player. He's gone to back-to-back OHL finals with the Oshawa Generals. He knows what it takes to, you know, get to that and play in those high-pressure situation games. So you like to see that as well. So I wouldn't label them as untouchable, but it's whatever the tier under that is for me. It's got to be something that's going to blow you away in terms of a trade package to trade both of these guys. It's not just something that'll just help shore up the lineup.
And I think you said it perfectly. You have this Leafs team that wants to win, but if you're moving out these assets, Ethan Cowan could be ready this upcoming season, maybe halfway through or at the start of next year. We know this Leafs team has elite talent. They just need that one extra piece. But Leafs fans, what's your thoughts on this? Would you still go out and try to get Nazem Kadri? We're seeing a lot of reports flying around. Frank Sally putting the flame out. Sorry, I couldn't even say that name for a second. You have so many reports around Kadri. Would you move out pieces? Who do you think is untouchable when it comes to the prospects? And where do you think the Leafs finish this year? Do they finally get over the hump? Do they make the conference finals? Do they finally hoist the cup the first time in color? Let us know down below. While you're down there, leave a like, subscribe, share this with your friends. We'll be back with more episodes. You're not going to want to miss it. But I've been your host, Mark, with my co-host, Darius, and take care.